Warning, this tutorial won't include the following information. How to download Minecraft, how to open .minecraft, how to install Forge/Fabric, how to install mods, how to use text editor, how to read, how to Google, how to listen, how to use Brain. It's finally time again. Time to return to making Addonpack tutorials. This time I want to start from the beginning and explain everything way better than in the old videos. Also, I want to handle new things because the old tutorials became very quickly a little bit outdated. So, let's begin. The Palladium Wiki, the #1 resource for anyone trying to make their own add-on pack. It has been significantly improved, not only because a lot of articles have been edited to be easier to understand, but also because there are new articles that complement new features that have been added into Palladium. Everything is also nicely sorted, making it easy to find what you're looking for. And this truly makes making your add-on pack significantly easier. The wiki is linked in the description and I highly recommend to check it out. No matter if you feel good while making an add-on pack or if you're just a beginner, this is a really useful resource. You can pretty much use any text editor to make a Palladium add-on, but if you asked me what I would recommend for a beginner, for somebody that never did anything with JSON files before, I would probably recommend Visual Studio Code. It has a lot of very useful features, like for example, telling you that a character is missing, even giving you suggestions on how to fix the problem. It also highlights opening and closing brackets, which is very useful if, for example, you are missing a bracket. In this case, I can see that this is closed and this is closed, but this isn't. And I can fix that by adding a closing bracket right here. It also has another very useful shortcut, Shift-Alt-F, which makes everything so much more readable, which makes finding bugs and adding stuff to your pack so much easier. A question beginners often ask is what graphics editor they should use. I personally would recommend to use something like Paint.net, which is the program you see right here. It is free to download from the Paint.net website, but for some reason not free on the Microsoft Store. Of course, you can use also a number of different other editors. I hope that somebody will put their favorite editor in the comments below to help people that are searching for a suitable graphics editor. Quite a lot of useful resources can be found in mods, documentation, Palladium, in the .minecraft folder. For example, abilities.html. It has a list of all the abilities from base Palladium and also other packs that use custom abilities. Every ability also comes with a nice table with settings, which covers the settings name and with a type of value it can hold. It's sometimes useful to look at this, sometimes it's not. Like if it's boolean, then it's either true or false, but it's not always as descriptive as I would like it to be. Description. This is what you should be looking at. Like icon for the ability, okay, but if you have something like bar color, it tells you the available values, which is quite useful. Everything also has a a field called required. This tells you if it is necessary for the ability to work at all, or if it's not. And fallback value. What's this? This is the value any of those settings will have if you don't set it in your ability, in your power. So for example, if I have bar color and I don't include that line in my ability, then the bar color this ability will have will be light gray, no matter what, unless I add bar color and change it to any of those other ones. It also has an example. This is how it should look in code. So this is an ability that will most likely work without any problems, but sometimes you need to tweak some values to make it work. So yeah. Another file you may be looking at, and both abilities and the other file, which is conditions.html, will be files that we will be looking at in this tutorial specifically. This has conditions, not only from Palladium but also from other packs that have custom conditions, just like with abilities.html. And it's built pretty similar, so at least it's consistent across those files. For example, we have ability enabled, we also have settings, setting names, descriptions, if it's required, if it's not required, the fallback value. So this makes actually finding out how to use everything a lot easier, especially since you also have descriptions for some powers. I mean, for some conditions. We will look at how to use conditions and powers and how to set up your pack to load in game shortly. But first I wanted to cover those files, and I will also look at how to use those files while making your pack, because I really want to help beginner Addonpackers understand how useful those files are, how useful it is that beginner Addonpackers have so many resources to look at. I opened in the Addonpacks folder using Visual Studio Code. It's an option under File, Open Folder, and I opened Addonpacks. I created a new folder and called it My First Pack. As far as I'm aware, it shouldn't have any spaces. And then I created another file, which is pack.mcmeta. If we open that file, this is what will allow Minecraft to read our Addonpack as something that exists, I guess. Without it, the game won't recognize that it's an Addonpack. So we can add a description, like I don't know, it should be something like that. Pack format. Since this tutorial is for 1.20.1, the pack format should be 15. And version, I would say this is a version. That would be right. You should change that every once in a while. This really helps you to differentiate different versions of your add-on pack. And ID. What's an ID? An ID also is called sometimes a namespace, and it should be something that's lowercase letters, underscores. Also heard that you can use this symbol, but I wouldn't personally recommend it. But only lowercase letters, and you should make it as unique as possible, so it's compatible with many mods. Because two mods or packs or whatever can't share the same namespace, or how it's called here, an ID. So let's call it Pierogi tutorial, and this is my pack ID. Right, this is my namespace. I'm calling it a namespace because Datapack people call it a namespace. So it makes also following Datapack tutorials significantly easier. Next thing that we need is to create a new folder, and we are going to call it data. And another folder that we need is assets. And all those folders should be in this folder, which is my Addonpack. This is also the folder with pack.mcmeta. Oh, I made assets a file. Assets is a folder. And the next one is add-on. They all have very different purposes, but each one should have another folder inside. And this folder should have this name. So now what we have here is a basic Addonpack setup, and we will be able to move on to adding our first superpower and testing it in game. If you want to add a superpower, you should look at the wiki first. So the wiki provides us with this kind of information. First of all, it gives us an information of what a power is. Second of all, we get a path that tells us that powers should be in the data folder, and after our namespace, so our pack ID folder, there should be a Palladium, and inside the Palladium folder there should be a powers folder, and inside of this powers folder should be a JSON file. This is a very basic superpower. It has no abilities, but it will be registered in-game. Then it also provides us with a description explaining what each of those settings does, which is very useful. And after that, adding abilities, which also informs you about mods documentation, Palladium abilities, HTML, and we will see how this looks like when creating your own Addonpack now. Okay, the next step is to create the folders as instructed at the wiki. Of course, you don't have to do it inside of Visual Studio Code. I just do it because I can see all of the files at once from my pack, but you can do that in just the file explorer. So let's create a new folder, and this folder will be Palladium. And the next one is powers, so and then we need a new file, which is my power, and that's how I decided to call it. And then we can go to the wiki and get this part from the wiki. Let's name it my power. In the future I'll maybe show how to make it so you can translate it to different languages. You can also set a background, and that's something that you can set to any texture you want, even a custom one. It doesn't have to be something from Minecraft. Then an icon, this can be any Minecraft item or any modded item. And there is also GUI display type. There are two, which is list, and the wiki also says tree. Tree is my favorite display. It was the original one, but list sometimes makes more sense because it's just a list of powers, while tree is oftentimes used for more complex powers, ones that require upgrades and skill trees and all that kind of stuff. We can now load this power in game. Okay people, so I made a very small mistake that I hope you won't make. I didn't add the new file, the superpower file, inside of the powers folder by accident, but I fixed it and I can reload. You can actually reload everything you place. You can reload everything you place inside of the data folder with the reload command. And I also have Gravestone Hero Time here installed, but I hope that won't be a problem. So if we use superpower, add, and our power, as you can see, we now have our power, and we don't have actually this button because we don't have any abilities. We will have a button right here to view our abilities once we actually get abilities to show up here. So we are looking once again at abilities.html. Here we have a list of abilities, and because I want this to be a tutorial, I want something that's easy enough to spot if it's enabled, if it's disabled. I could use aim. In a previous tutorial I used energy beams or energy blasts. Yeah, energy blasts are the older, not supported anymore versions of energy beams. Energy beams are the new improved ones. I'll actually make a tutorial for energy beams because that was highly requested, but I think I will use vibrate because it's very visible if it's enabled. So let's copy this. Let's also look at the fallback values right here. This is just the vibration effect, not actually phasing through walls and stuff like that. So yeah, now let's go to our file and add that in. Okay, so I added the abilities section off screen, and now what we need to do is add an ability key. What's that? It's a name of the ability. That's not something you will see in game, but something you will need to identify different abilities. If you have more complex systems of conditions and whatnot, we will get to conditions shortly, but first of all we need to understand why we need conditions and how to add powers. So what's a suitable key name? Something that's lowercase letters and underscores. I don't know if this symbol will work in this case. To be safe, I would just use lowercase letters and underscores and nothing more. Otherwise you might run into weird issues. We can then paste what we copied here, and also it's nicely formatted. Okay, we need this. We cannot forget about this, but I don't need an icon to be anything else than a brace rod, so I can delete that. I don't need a title. I don't need a bar color, and I want it to not be hidden and to not be hidden in bar. I don't need a list index, and also I don't need a description. And GUI position is something that you would use if you have the GUI display type tree. It's for skill trees to have different positions of items in there. And now that we have a setup like this, we can launch the game, or if it's already launched, we can /reload and see the changes. Now that we are in game, we can press reload, and we are vibrating. But it's kind of annoying that it just kind of happens. There is no button to enable it, no kind of special condition on which it enables. So the next thing that we will do is exactly that. Something to enable this. Something so it isn't always on. We are back again in our browser, looking at yet another file, conditions.html. Very useful because it has a list of conditions. So we need something to activate our power, our vibration power, and I think that's something that you would need to hold a button to activate, and of course release to deactivate. Something like that may be the health ability while holding a keybind. Okay, so this is this condition, and also accepts different keybinds, which is left click, right click, space bar, but also keybind, and keybind is something that shows up on your ability bar. There's also cooldown, which gives you a maximum time this ability can be enabled before it disables itself, and if it needs an empty hand, which is also something that can be useful. So let's now paste it into our code. Some people get a little bit confused by conditions, but it's not really that difficult to understand. First of all, you need to keep in mind where your opening and your closing brackets are. So you have our ability, and before this closing bracket we need to add another line, which is conditions, and after that we need those brackets, and then we need to remember that there are two types of conditions: unlocking and enabling. Unlocking will enable this, unlocking will unlock this ability, so it will be unlocked in the ability bar or in the skill tree or in the ability list, but it will not be enabled directly. So enabling is actually what we need in this case. And after that we can use square brackets and then place our condition. Then I use that shortcut to format everything nicely. And actually, because I don't want to add any cooldown or change the key type, and I also don't think that it needs an empty hand, I can delete those lines, leaving it as just this. Now we can test in game how that works. No, I didn't accidentally create a bug. I didn't forget to save my file. I just didn't reload my game. Yes, Minecraft was open the entire time because once again, everything inside of data folder can be reloaded with /reload. And we stopped vibrating. Very nice, isn't it? Okay, I am back after literally 5 seconds. I, for some reason, set hidden as true and hidden in bar as true, while it should be false, of course, because I don't want it to be hidden. So now if I reload, I will get a nice keybind. And as you can see, if it's enabled, I start vibrating. If it's not, I don't. Okay, so next step is figuring out how to add more abilities. And that would be it for tutorial number 1. Tutorial number 2 would handle a couple more interesting things, because this tutorial is kind of more about the data folder and stuff you can do inside of that. Of course, inside of the data folder you can do everything data packs can do. So if you are interested, I would recommend looking into that. It's not something that I would make on this channel tutorials for, because I am not a data pack expert, and there are a lot of channels out there telling you how to make a data pack much better than I would ever be able to. So the next tutorial will be all about assets, which is the next folder, and I will show you probably render layers, model types, how to use basic stuff in Blockbench, what to remember. I don't think I will show you animated models, but I also may show you player animations, which is something from Cube.js, and it's something also documented on the wiki. There's also trails. There are also special render layer types like flickers and thrusters. So yeah, let's add ability number 2 and finish this tutorial. Okay, so how to add more abilities. This is not something that we will test in game after we complete it. I mean, I won't. You can if you want to. So first of all, it's really important to know which is the opening and closing bracket of your ability, and also what's the opening and closing bracket of abilities. Many people have a problem where they don't know, where they don't notice that even when they use Visual Studio Code they have this highlight, and they don't notice. So some people place and start adding new abilities here. And they argue that it doesn't give any error, so it should be correct. But the issue is that's part of Vibrate now. not part uh, of just abilities, not another ability inside of abilities, but it's contained, it's inside of vibrate. And it's quite difficult to explain to some people that that's not the way you should do it. You should go to the closing bracket of your ability, of your last ability, and then start introducing a new one, like this one. This ability is something from abilities.html, and its description is that it does nothing. It sometimes may be even useful. It's definitely useful if you want an ability that does nothing, if you want something that's more connected to effects than something that's functional. I know that many Addonpackers really want to have an ability like that. So yeah, that's how you add a second ability, and if you want a third ability, then you just do that and add another one. Of course, if you want, you can add conditions to this one. That's something you can do, and I think that when it comes to Addonpacking, just your creativity is the limit, and I'm just here to show you what's possible, not everything you should do. So you should experiment, you should play around with those different systems, you should ask many questions, because no question is stupid, really. So hopefully this is a better tutorial than the previous ones, and I hope that I will continue making more of them. And I want to finish 1.20 tutorials, and then once 1.21 releases, I will start making ones for 1.20.1. So see you in the next one. Goodbye.